Hey folks, welcome back to the Mac and Mike Show. I'm Mac and he's Mike. We're going to talk something that's kind of near and dear to our hearts today. Mike said to me yesterday, "What do you want to talk about when we get together for our podcast?" I said, "You know what, Mike? Let's talk about getting old. Something we both know a lot about. We experience it on a daily basis." Years ago, before my mother passed away, she used to tell me all the time, "You know, Alan, getting old ain't for sissies." I think she got that from an actress that she liked. That, at any rate,
Mae West. It sounds like.
No, it was actually it was. I can't remember the name. Do you remember the movie that John Wayne was in with? And he played a bounty hunter or a marshal that was out to get. And he found this. Her name will come to me. That's one of the things that happen when you get old. You know that name is in there, but you can't pull it out of your memory banks, and it's unfortunate that happens. But it happens to all of us. And there's 101 little things that you notice every day. What do I mean? I pick something up in my hand, and I'm walking with it, and all of a sudden it slips out of my hand. That never happened to me whenever I was 40. It does now that I'm 70. And there's 1,000 little things that go on in your daily life you don't give any thought to until you get old enough and you can't do it the way you used to. I used to wake up in the morning, spring to the side of the bed, sit on the side of the bed. I would stand up and I would put my underwear on one leg after the other and never flinch. Now I have to grab hold of the chest of drawers next to me before I lift up my leg to put one leg in and the other leg in, because you can't stand on one leg anymore. Not when you get to be a certain amount of years of age. Your world just changes, and it's not just the insignificant physical things and the really annoying mental things, but it's other things as well, right, Mike?
Yeah, boy, we should get a bunch of our friends online for this, because at our age, we have a lot of older friends, too. I have friends, like Max, 2 years older than me, but I got friends that are close to 80, and, that's the thing. 10 years apart doesn't seem like much. But the other thing, too, is we've both lost a lot of friends, that died in their 50s and early 60s. Just noticed, I said Nick Pope died, who was 60 the other day. He was the fellow I think he was from Great Britain or something, into the UFO things. He was a famous person, and a friend of mine was dear friends with. Anyway, most people won't know who he is. But yeah, you're right about the memory slips. You're right about I don't really have the dropsies much, but I think I've even dropped things in my 40s, so that's not too, but the calling things to mind. And the other thing I mentioned to you the other day is this is a double-edged sword. So I looked into how much of the information you and I learned when we were in high school and college is still correct today. Now, it would depend on the field, whether it's mathematics, science, biology, it's history, etc. But in some fields, like, believe it or not, biology was the worst. The things that, at our age that you learned about biology, only 40% of what we learned in high school about biology is still true. That's how much biology information changed. And mathematics is like 95% still the same. History is 60% the same, which means 40% of history has changed. And a lot of that's driven by our archaeological discoveries, which you just mentioned something earlier today.
History is written by the winners, by the victors.
By the victors, plus archaeology. You just mentioned something being uncovered in northern Egypt that I want to look into.
Some ancient Christian like monastery burial sites. They were shocked to find Christian symbols that far, that are thousands of years old.
And we were just talking about North America and the American Indians. And I had mentioned that I had read that the American Indians had been here much, much longer than we thought 15, 20 years ago. Again, new archaeological discoveries showed that they inhabited this continent much longer than previously thought. So that's the one edge of the sword, So it keeps you humble, if you're older. I mean, at the rate information changes, it would, I don't trust what I learned last year, Mac. But especially if it's 20, 40, 50 years old information. But the other side is my son-in-law posted something that you and I discussed earlier. He said, if I handed you a microphone right now and asked you to speak on a subject for 30 minutes, what could you speak on? Well, all of his contemporary younger friends in their 30s listed one thing. Me at 68, I listed 5 things that, 5 subjects that I could speak easily on for 30 minutes or more. And one of his friends remarked, wow, that's a lot. And I said, well, yeah, because I'm 68, I've done a lot, I've thought a lot, and I've had a lot of time to investigate the things that I'm interested in so that I can speak intelligently on those subjects, whether it's quantum physics and the nature of reality, combat search and rescue that I spent 23 years teaching in the Air Force, or if it's biblical studies, or politics and critical thinking and psychology. So, so you have this thing here where you've gained a lot of information. I think the Pennsylvania Dutch had a saying, what was it? We grow wise too slow and old too quick.
We grow old too soon and smart too late.
Yeah, similar. And that's the truth. So here we are, old guys with all this information and life experience that may or may not be true, but along with it comes something else called wisdom. So even if the facts aren't the same, we know how to think. We patiently try not to jump to conclusions when we hear things and overreact.
I like some of the laws of Murphy, if you've ever heard or read some of them. One of the ones that I like very much, because I'm old now, is old age and treachery will beat youth and skill every time.
Yes.
And I think that with experience comes a confidence in your ability to manage things effectively, no matter your age. And I'm here to tell you that's your brain fooling you, because as you put more years on the airframe or on the body, you find yourself less capable or less able to do things that you used to do as a matter of course. I asked my grandsons about a year ago to help me put up this one particular self-constructed structure. And, my 3 grandsons were all in their late teens or early 20s, and I'm in my 60s. Well, I looked at this thing and I thought I could do it myself. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I just want to give my grandson some money, so I asked them to help me. And, by the end of the day, they were the ones that were still percolating around doing all the tasking. I'm sitting on the steps of the porch saying, I'm bushed. Yeah. I'm dead tired. And I mean tired to the point that my joints were aching and my body was saying, no, you dumb fool, you can't do this anymore. And that's, I think, universally true, especially of men. You look at something and you say to yourself, oh, I can do that. I've done that hundreds of times. And yet you probably can still do it. But it's going to take you 2 or 3 times as long.
It's going to hurt.
And it's going to hurt your body when you're done. But your brain tells you, oh, yeah, I've done that lots of times. I can do that.
Well, do you remember earlier today we were talking, and so I lease my car now. And one of the reasons I lease my car is because of my age, because I figure, okay, I'd like to have the latest and greatest, so I don't want to keep a car 10 years like I used to. But I live in an area where, there's the typical cross intersections, but out here in the country, there's an angular road. So when you have to look left, you have to all look behind you. Now, when I was young, man, I just turned right around. Today, it's like I get the neck so far and I go, that hurts. Well, when you're thinking about the pain, you're not clearly looking for traffic. So
you have to kind of adjust yourself in the seat.
Yeah, you got to throw your whole body to the side, right? Yeah. So, they have these vehicles. Some of them have the surround cameras, and the vehicle I have now doesn't. It used to, but then they stopped putting it in the vehicle. And I was at the dealership because September I got a new lease. I said, did you decide to put that surround camera system in? He says no, but he takes me out to the upgraded model that has it. And he showed me the cameras, and I said, well, that still won't solve my problem being able to. I said, so I guess I'm going to have to either start doing stretching exercises or get my butt to a chiropractor and get my neck cracked so I can get some mobility back. So there's another real-life example of what you were just talking about, Mac.
Well, but even simple things, Mike, like when you're 25, you never go to the doctor. Nothing ever hurts. There's no problem.
I had 3 doctor appointments in 1 week.
And so when you get to be 60 or 70, not only do you have the doctor's appointments, but you're constantly faced with limitations that you didn't expect to have. And youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah, that's about it.
Because we take it for granted, and it's reasonable to be that way because you've never experienced the limitations, so you don't know that someday or eventually that you're going to have these limitations. But simple and easy things like bending over to tie your shoe. It's not the simple. When you're 25 or 30, you pop down on one knee, you pull your foot out, you tie the shoe, and you pop one knee up and the other one down, and you do the other one, and it's not something you think about. It's just instantaneous action, and now you want to tie your shoe at age 70, and you look for the table you can lean on to lower yourself down so you can do that. It's just all these things that become important to you in ways you didn't expect, and very honestly you don't want. No. I was talking to my son the other day, and I'm 70 now. I'll be 71 this year in August, and I said to my son, I said, I only have 7 years left. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, the average age of a white male in North America is 77 years. He said, well, Dad, he said, that's true. He said, but you're just talking about averages. He said, now that you've already reached the age of 70, you have to adjust that. He said, do yourself a favor, go to the insurance company websites and look at the actuary tables. If you've made it to age 70, you're more than likely going to make it to 82 or 85 or 87, whatever age he told me. He said that at 77 age is based on the fact that a lot of people die when they're 22.
Right, yeah, doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, the stuff we used to do, and we never killed ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, I was saying that to my buddy I was talking to on the phone the other day. When we were kids, we each had these, what we called mini bikes, and they were not motorcycles, but they were gasoline engines on a bicycle frame,
bike, yeah.
That's so, and you could putter that around and go 20 or 30 miles an hour. Well, we were dumb kids, and I was 16, and I just got my driver's license. Okay, so he and I are running down the road, and all of a sudden he's a little bit ahead of me. He turns around, and he looks at me, and he yells, "Stop! Stop!" And I'm thinking, what's wrong? What's the matter? So I immediately let off the throttle. I started to pull to the side of the road, and when I did that, the chain that ran the power to the back wheel jumped off because I put the brakes on so quick and left out. So my chain is now off, and I'm coasting to the side of the road, and he's taking off out. So I'm looking around, and finally I realized he wasn't yelling stop, he was yelling cop.
Oh.
So there's a state policeman behind me. Now he's got his lights flashing, and I pull to the side of the road. And he said, son, he said, do you have a driver's license? I said, yes, sir, I do. Can I see it? I gave him my driver's license. This is how old I am. We did not have picture ID. Mine was a little cardboard piece of paper.
I didn't have picture ID either.
Yeah. So I gave him my driver's license. Well, he said, that's good. He said, at least you have a driver's license. He said, that eliminates 2 or 3 tickets I have to write for you. Mm-hmm. So what he wrote me a ticket for was driving a non-licensed vehicle on the state road. And, I forget what the fine was or how many points there were or whatever. But so the cop says to me, he says, who's that was riding with you? Oh, I don't know. Some guy met that back on the block, He's just some kid I recognize. I don't really know him. I just know he has a mini bike, and we were riding around up on the, we were up on the railroad property before we decided to come down here. And he said, well, why don't you give him a call and see if he'll come in and talk to me? So his name was John. I won't give you his last name. Not important. So I'm standing there by the side of the road. I'm yelling, "Hey, Joe, Joe, do you want to come in, Joe?" And the way the property was laid out, the road went around a bend, and there was an empty lot. And on the other side of the empty lot was a stream bed, and he had gone down over the side of the ramp or the drop off to the stream, and he was crawling up against the bank of this little stream, just laughing like hell that I'm stuck with this cop. But those are the stupid things you talk about you were doing, and I never should have had that mini bike on the road. And although I didn't want to get stopped by a cop, thank goodness I did and didn't get hit by some 18-wheeler driving too fast down the road.
Yeah, I'll go into this military career field, become a combat search and rescue instructor, and see how long I can live. But yeah, it's crazy. Before
you went in the military, you worked at like UPS,
yeah,
right? Unloading trucks or something?
Unloading tractor trailers all day long while I was in college. I started out part-time, ended up full-time.
Well, you were what, in your 20s? You were studly.
Yes.
Your muscles had muscles.
I did.
You set records for the amount of time that you unloaded trucks because you were so damn good at it.
And it used to make the full-time old guys really mad because you're young and full of...
Well, no shit, because guys our age, right? We can't do that crap anymore.
Well, you didn't have anybody like over 40 working in that kind of environment that couldn't handle it. But yeah, it's something that, like you said, about just tying your shoes or putting on your pants and finding something to lean on. I identify with everything that you're saying, and I think, yeah, you really don't know until you start talking to another old codger. So, Mac went with me down to the Outer Banks where I have a bunch of friends because I used to live down there. And we're all a bunch of old codgers, anywhere from our 60s to 80. And, we got to this restaurant. We always go out when I go down there, about 10 of us. And we all walked in like young men, we take our seat and we're sitting there for an hour and we eat and we're shooting the breeze and having a good time. We all get up to leave, and as we all get up, I'm trailing in the back, and I'm watching every single one of us, including myself, limping out of the restaurant because you sat for an hour. That's how bad it gets.
I'll go you one better. I have breakfast on a regular basis with some friends of mine, and at age 70, I'm the youngest guy in the group. And so I show up to breakfast. Usually we meet for breakfast at 7 o'clock, and I show up. It's like 7:05. So somebody's sitting in my seat. So to begin with, somebody is sitting in my assigned seat at the table for 7 a.m. breakfast, and I'm saying, "Hey, listen, you're turning the world upside down because that's my seat, right? Because when you're old, you want things to be
just the way they were."
So I sit down on the end of the table and I'm listening to these guys talk, and they're talking about the knee replacement and the hip replacement, and this guy has to go for a colonoscopy, and all this conversation is going around this table, and finally there's a pause in the action. I did one of these, and everybody looks down the table at me because I'm sitting at the end, and I said, "I'm never coming back here and sitting down at this table with you old guys.
Yeah,
I'm too young for this kind of conversation."
Well,
but that's what happens when you're old. You have something go wrong, and somebody mentioned their hip replacement, and you got to talk about your experience with your knee replacement.
Right, like I'll talk about my cancer or this or that, and I don't even know what you want to say, but your eyes are not what they used to be, and that's got to be pretty devastating.
Oh, yeah, macular degeneration. Talk about the joy of joys. I get to go to the doctors every 4 to 6 weeks, and they jam a needle in my eye. Is that fun or what?
Yeah, I remember that Cross My Heart and Hope to Die, stick a needle in my eye. This guy gets that done routinely, on purpose.
And it helps me not go blind, but it is and thank goodness they have the medical procedure that they do that retards the progression of the disease. I mean, you think about it, and I don't know how, when they developed the human body, I don't know what the life cycle expectancy was. Remember back in the 70s when they planned obsolescence of your new car at 7 years?
Yes.
They sold your car and said, "Okay, you'll be back in 7 years." They wouldn't give you a loan for longer than six or 7 years, an auto loan, because they knew that at 7 years it was going to be rusted through, it was going to be a piece of crap. So anyways, we're beyond that. But I don't know what kind of warranty they put on the human body, but I'll tell you this. So I wake up one morning, I'm having a hard time seeing out of one of my eyes. And I go to my regular doctor. I said, "Look, doc, right in the center of my eye, in my right eye, it looks like there's a piece of wax paper. I mean, I can see like, shapes and shadows and movement, but I can't see like I used to." And I had 2015 vision in one eye and 2010 in the other. My vision was so good it was sick, and I miss it now that I don't have it. So I go in and I'm talking to this guy and I'm telling him about this piece of wax paper. He sends me to an eye doctor, Dr. Klein, down at the Carlisle at the Dunham Clinic. He's an optometrist, and he takes one look at me and he says, "Okay, we got to get to see a retina specialist." I go to the retina specialist and said, "Oh yeah, you have macular degeneration. It happens to people when they get old." I said, "I'm not old."
Yeah.
I guess in body age I am old. I don't think of myself. See, that's the other thing. you get to be 67 or 68, or I'm 70.
Yeah, I'm 60.
I don't think of myself as being old, Mike. You know, I'm waiting for that moment when I say, "Damn, McCormick, you're old," but I don't feel that way. Like most people don't. I'm not being egotistical when I say this. Most people don't expect. They don't. They can't gauge my age properly. I'll tell you a story. Guy's 3 years younger than me. Saw him in a coffee shop the other day, and he comes up and he sits down at the table where my friend and I were sitting, and we're chatting a little bit. And he looks really bad. He had cancer, and I mean really bad cancer, and a lot of chemotherapy, and he survived. And he said something about his looks, and I said, after what you've been through, you look pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
And he said something to me. He said, "Well, why aren't you guys sitting outside?" And I said, "Well, at my age, I get cold too easily." I said, "I want to be inside now," because they have like this tent next to the coffee shop with tables and space heaters and all that stuff, and it's a little bit more. It's more quiet than the coffee shop, with the roaster going and the radio playing and all that kind of stuff, or whatever music they have playing. And he says, "Cold? Age? What do you mean?" He said, You're not even as old as I am." I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "No, you're not. Look at you." He said, "How old are you?" I said, "How old do you think I am?" He said, "I don't know, 55, 58. I said, "No, I'm 70. "Holy shit, you are old." He said, "You're 3 years older than I am." So my point is, not many people guess my age, and I give credit to my mom. Her generations of Swedes and Englishmen who never looked their age. My Italian side of the family, they always look like somebody from The Godfather. But I escaped the Italian looks, even though my grandmother's name was Randazzo.
Yeah, well, I ran into the same sales guy over at the car dealership that Joe. He's 81, still working. I'm talking to Joe. He's from Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn. We had some commonality to talk about. And we're sitting there and we're, just shooting the breeze. And I said, "Are you going to retire soon?" Because I figured he was around my age, getting close. And he said, "No." I said, "I got no plans to retire anytime soon." I said, "Can I ask how old you are?" He says, 81. I said, "Holy crap. I thought you were my age." He's fit. He's got Italian. He's got the sort of olive smooth Mediterranean diet skin, Me, I'm an old Irish, wrinkled, pockmarked, Irishman. So, we always look our age faster, typically. And,
but the thing is with age, Mike, is that there's a whole group of these creeping maladies that get you every single day, usually when you're not expecting.
Yes.
Okay? When I retired at age 65, and I started collecting, from Social Security, and of course I had my military retirement, and I get all my health care from the local military clinic facility. And my doctor says to me, he says, "How old are you, McCormick?" I said, "Well, I'm 65. He said, "When was your last colonoscopy?" I said, "Doc, I've never had a colonoscopy." "You dumb son of a bitch. You got to get it. When you're 60, you got to start getting those things as a matter of fact, you probably should have had one when you were 55. I said, "Well, Doc, I never had a colonoscopy." He said, "Well, we're going to schedule one for you." I said, "Well, wait a minute, Doc. Wait, time out. What exactly is a colonoscopy?" He said, "Well, McCormick, what they do is they put you in this room with a medical doctor who has 5 foot of rubber hose, and he has his way with you." I said, "Gee, Doc, you make it sound such a great experience I want to have." Well, if you've never had a colonoscopy, what they do to you is they put you to sleep, and then they put a camera up your rectum to make certain that there's no cancer within your colon. And so I get into this colonoscopy, Doc, and he comes into the room, and I see all these medical things on the wall, all these diplomas. And I said, "So, Doc," I said, you got a lot of medical diplomas and stuff. You went to school a long time." He said, "Yeah, I had to go to an extra 8 years. I said, "Doc," I said, "I'm just curious." I said, why did you choose colonoscopy? I said, aren't you meeting people from the wrong end? And he got flustered a little bit. In the meantime, the two nurses that are in there, they're trying hard not to laugh. And the doctor says, I hate cancer. I could tell I pissed him off. I said, you're right, Doc, you're right. I hate cancer too. I said, I'm sorry I brought it up. I said, so anyways, I said, I asked my doc what colonoscopy would like, and I just told you, the doctor comes in, he puts you to sleep, he has his way with you with a 5 foot rose. And again, the nurses, and he gets pissed off again. Oh, you got to do it. You don't want to die, do you? I said, no, I'm not much interested in dying. So they put me to sleep, and he does the colonoscopy, and he shows me the video later, and I don't even have a polyp in my colon. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a flesh-colored tomb, flesh-colored tunnel you're going through. But I found out that the doctor did have a sense of humor. 3 weeks after my colonoscopy, I get this letter in the mail from the colonoscopy doctor. It's 2 pages, 8.5 by 11 sheets of white paper, and there's the paragraph. You know how they put a picture in, and they use wrap text around the picture so that they can. So there's a 4 by 6 picture in the center of this 2-page letter he sends me of my greased up bare behind, and I thought he does have a sense of humor. Now, I'd never seen myself from that angle, Mike. As a matter of fact, it never occurred to me to try to see what was down there hiding between my cheeks, if you know what I mean.
I hear you.
So anyways, that's the other thing you have to look forward to. And I bring that up because I had my annual physical, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. And the first thing the young lady says to me, she says, well, you're due for another colonoscopy. I said, look, put it off till next year. I said, they sent me a letter. I'm really not interested. I said, the last time there was nothing there. Well, you still have to do it every 10 years. So I'm avoiding another colonoscopy. But there's other things that happen to you, Mike. My dad is 98. He's incapable of caring for himself anymore. So you know who has to care for him? I do. Did you ever try to cut a 98-year-old's toenails? Mm-mm. It's kind of like rock wrapped in concrete. And every time I tried to snip his toenails, he's writhing and wiggling, and it looks like I'm killing him. So I scheduled an appointment with the VA, because he's a 43-year veteran, World War II in Korea. I scheduled an appointment with the VA, and I get him a podiatrist appointment. Now, I had tried to clip his nails, and again, all you old guys, you know what I'm talking about. And you young guys, you don't know yet, but you will. So I'm trying to cut my dad's toenails with, little manicure scissors and, toenail clippers and stuff. It's Mike, I need dynamite down there. So I get him into the podiatrist, and, in order to cut his nails, I had to pull out some not tin snips, but some regular wire snips out of my toolbox. And he's writhing like I'm killing him. So guess what happened? I take him to the podiatrist.
10 snips.
They pull out a pair of those snips like they were wire cutters too, and they're cutting his toenails, and he's writhing on the bed there. It was not hilarious because I thought my dad was in pain, but it's the same thing. When you get old, your toenails stop being those thin, beautiful pieces of covering for your toes, protection, to being these obnoxious pieces of steel concrete that are wrapping around your toes, and you can't possibly get. He couldn't wear shoes. I kept trying to snip them, and he would put a shoe on and he would complain about his foot hurting.
Yeah, so I'll show you what I recently got for that, because my toenails have gotten close to that.
What'd you do?
Oh, I got they sell on Amazon an extra wide gap angular thing that's not the tin snips. I have yet to use them, but I just ordered them because.
Well, tell me what you do, because I'm having trouble with my nails now. See, again, when you're young, you're young and you're skinny and you're fit, and what you do is you pull your foot up and you put it on top of the vanity, and you reach over with these little insignificant little scissors, manicure scissors, and you cut your toenails, and there's no problem. Me, I'm old and fat, and I can't see because of my macular degeneration. Guess what happens to me? I go to cut my toenails, and inevitably I cut the end of my toe off.
Yeah. And
then it bleeds like. You remember when Donald Trump got shot and all that blood kept flowing out of his ear?
Yeah.
cut your toe sometime and see how much
yeah.
blood.
There's
I mean,
a
there
lot.
was a puddle of blood on the floor of my bathroom. I didn't even know I was bleeding. It didn't hurt,
Right.
but the blood was almost squirting out of there
That's-
like it cut my jugular vein.
That's because you get neuropathy as you get older. You can't feel things.
Yeah, that's
at the
probably
end
true
of your toes.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably true too.
So
Yeah.
okay, so you went down that aisle.
Well, let's talk about medications, right?
Oh my God!
When you're 25 or 30, you're invulnerable. Nothing can hurt you. You don't even take vitamins.
Take Advil if you drink too much. That's about it.
You eat what you want when you want, and it doesn't matter. You drink what you want when you want. It doesn't matter. You can drink till 2 a.m., get up at 6 a.m., and not feel the effects. Well, I don't drink anymore because when I drink, I don't wake up in the morning. I mean, not physically, I'm not dead or anything, but it takes me a while to get my groggy filled head out of off the pillow. But yeah, I mean, next thing you know, you'll be taking blood pressure medicine, and you'll be taking
Medicine for your benign prostate hyperplasia because you can't pee anymore because your prostate. You're going to be taking.
You know what? Thank God for that medicine that helps you pee.
Yeah.
If you've never had the pleasure of standing at a toilet and saying, I have to pee, and standing there, and you say, I have to pee, and standing there, and you say to yourself, I have to pee, and you look down, hoping against all hope that water is or urine is going to come out of the dragon, as you used to call it. It's no longer a dragon when you get older, and you're saying to yourself, I have to pee, and then eventually this little insignificant, weak-ass kind of urine comes streaming out of there and dribbling out, and you say to yourself, I still have to pee. And that's when the doctor steps in and says, here, have this miracle drug.
Yeah, Flomax.
And then you pee like a racehorse, you know?
Well, until you don't anymore, because even that stops working at some point.
Well, mine's still working. Are you saying yours isn't working?
It's working, but, you know, I've got the additional problem that a lot of older guys get called nocturia. So
what the hell is that?
Nocturia is when you have to get up like 6 times a night to pee, but it's not because of your prostate. It's because of the way your kidneys function and the blood flows, and it's just, I don't know how many people get it. It's quite common. And then you have to fight with the drug companies to get them to authorize the medicine that'll help with that because it's kind of expensive. So that's what I'm waiting on next, because I do get up 5-6 times a night. Not a good way to sleep.
You know, when you talk about expensive, I have TRICARE Select, okay?
Yeah,
and having TRICARE Select, I go to a military medical facility. I either go to the one closest to me, the Fillmore Clinic, which is a subclinic under the Dunham Clinic, which is a clinic that's originally part of the Walter Reed Army Medical Hospital. Because I get all my health care from the military, so from the Army clinics, I don't pay a nickel. I pay nothing for a prescription. They call in my prescription. I show up 3 days later. They give me the prescription. No copay, no nothing. It's the greatest system on. Thank you, Uncle Sugar. I was going to talk about something that went right out of my head. I don't remember. I'll remember 5 minutes from now. You were talking about going to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, and I had a really you were talking about getting up all the time during the night. Last night, I woke up this morning, Mike. My body battery recharge number was 62.
Jeez.
You know when the last time I had a 62 was? I've been averaging in the 20s for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Not only that, but my sleep score was a 75.
Holy
I haven't seen
smacks.
75 for 2 months.
Yeah, me either.
I don't know what the hell I did last night, but I hit the rack, man, and I was gone.
Gone.
I was Z'd out. See, that's the other thing you do when you're old. You don't sleep well. So you... Not sleeping well causes you to be irritable. It causes you to, as you said, take a nap during the day. But
Lack
also
energy.
You're fatigued.
Yes,
you know,
lack
you're
energy.
fatigued in a way that I can't explain. It doesn't seem reasonable, but I don't blame the fatigue on being old. I blame the fatigue on not getting the proper sleep. And it's impossible to get the proper sleep. And here's the thing, like I not only take the Flomax, but I also take one of those what the hell is it called? One of those things that they hawk. If you take this, you won't get up 7 times a night.
Oh, okay. One of the over-the-counter medications for prostate.
Prostagenics,
Prostagenics.
whatever
or
it
something.
is. So I sleep pretty much through the night. But if something wakes me up, I have my brother staying with me. I won't get into that whole story, but my brother, he snores. He has this heater he runs all night, which makes me sweat all night. And he makes noises. And because he sleeps so much of the day, he's awake during the night. When he's awake during the night, he's on his phone and he's coughing and he's hacking it. So when he wakes me up at night, then I realize that I have to pee. If I'm asleep, I don't know I have to pee. And it's a combination of those drugs, I guess. But, when he wakes me up and then I wake up and I have to go to the bathroom. But getting old is... The only good thing about getting old is, as I've heard said, it beats the heck out of the alternative. But lately, I'm not so sure.
Well, as Christians, we do believe that it'll be better when this is over.
Well, I want to be around. My son's going to get married in the 26th, 25th, 24th, 25th. He's getting married this month, which is kind of cool. He's my youngest, and I love the young lady that he's getting marrying. She is a true sweetheart, and she is a pharmacist, so she's able to explain to me all these various and different medications, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, getting old, man, it's a new world, and you need to prepare yourself for it. And there's so many things that you go through, and so many new experiences that you have, and I mean experiences that you didn't expect to have. You go for a walk. And after walking a couple of blocks, you start to get a little bit winded, and you say to yourself, "What's this?
Yeah.
What's this?" Now, I'm not talking about running. I'm not a crazy man. I don't run anymore like I did when I was in the military. You had to run, and you had to be in shape, and you had to take a PT test. No. I'm talking about walking. You walk too far, and you notice a little bit of shortness of breath. Say, "Hey, what is this? This isn't how this happens. This isn't how it works. What's going on here?" So, is that all we got to complain about getting old?
Yeah, I think that pretty much
guess the
wraps it up.
admonition to my friends and people who are watching this: when you're 20, you're Superman. When you're 30, you're not Superman anymore, but you can do everything you did at age 20, even if it takes you just a smidgen a little bit longer. When you get to be 40, you notice a difference, but for the most part, that stuff that you did when you were 30 can do easy when you're 40. Now you get to be 50 and you start to slow down. And you say to yourself, this isn't the way it's supposed to work. And then when you get to be 60, the things you used to be able to do when you're 30, you can't do them anymore. But here's the worst part. Your brain lies to you. You say to yourself, "Oh, put that fence post in? Oh, I can do that in about 35 minutes. I used to do that all the time. Yeah, I put an entire chain link fence around my house. Took me half a day. Got that baby done, slicker and snot and a doorknob, and I had the rest of the time to drink beer and watch football." And then when you're 50, or when you say to yourself, I can't do this anymore. And then you hit the 6-0. And when you hit the 6-0, Mike, what happens?
Everything.
You're supposed to talk. You can't do anything anymore. You have to hire somebody to do it, okay?
Done that, do that.
Yeah, like you used to rake your garden. You hire somebody to do that. You used to mow your lawn. You hire somebody to do
Well, I
that.
still ride my lawn tractor, but...
Well, yeah, and I have mower envy. You have better lawn tractors than I do. I got a nice one. I got a Simplicity. It does everything but tie your shoes, but it's not as big and powerful. Like Tim from Tool Time, more power. And then you get to be 70. You have yet to hit that special. When you get to be 70, you say to yourself, I hope that coffin is ready. Because there's nothing I can do. Folks, I'm telling you, I don't know what women's experience are. I'm telling you, my experience is, you men, be prepared. Get ready now. Get yourself a grandson or a great-grandson and be friends with them so that all the yard work can get done. I'm done. Are you done?
I'm done too.
That's what happens when you get old. The only thing good about getting old is beats the heck out of the alternative. Mac and Mike.
Out.